my water just broke. I felt like things really intensified.
She was right there and she was coming.
It was an amazing feeling.
I'm going to cry just thinking about it. I could feel her head.
We heard her cry. We were squeezing hands and she was screaming.
I'm Bryn Hunt Palmer, and you're listening to The Birth Hour. This podcast is designed as a safe place to come together and share childbirth stories. Stick around and join us to hear informative and empowering birth journeys from all over the world. If you're new to the Birth Hour, you may not know that we have an online childbirth course that is evidence-based. It includes 12 modules that take you from your final weeks of pregnancy through obviously preparing for birth and then postpartum and feeding your baby as well. And with enrollment in that course, which is called Know Your Options, you'll get free access to our other course called Beyond the First Latch, where we talk all about pumping, feeding baby, storing milk, going back to paid work if that's part of your plan, all of those things as well. Okay, so if you go to thebirthhour.com/course, you can see everything laid out in the course, module by module, as well as an FAQ section, which will hopefully answer some of your questions if you have any, things like how to get it covered by an FSA account and things like that. It also talks about the bonuses that come with the course, including bi-monthly Zoom calls and access to our private Facebook group. So again, that's thebirthhour.com/course. And you can use the coupon code 100OFF for $100 off enrollment as a podcast listener. We would also love to welcome you into our listener supporter group via Patreon. That's at patreon.com/birthhour. And by becoming a Patreon supporter, you get access to all of our archived episodes. This podcast launched in 2015, so we have over 800 episodes in the archives that are not in the main podcast feed, so you can get your fill of birth stories. And you'll also get access to our private Facebook group for Patreon members, which is a great place to honestly just to search the past posts to get answers to questions, but then of course to ask new questions, find community. It's a really, really great supportive group of people. So I highly recommend joining that. We would love to have you there. We also do monthly Zoom calls with our Patreon supporters, and you get an opportunity to enter your birth story via a different submission form than everyone else uses, and we choose 2 Patreon members each month to share their birth stories. So that is again at patreon.com/birthhour. Oh, and Patreon just added the option to gift a membership. So if you go to patreon.com/birthhour/gift, that will take you to that screen if you want to send it to someone who needs a gift idea for you, or you want to gift it to someone else. Today's episode is brought to you by Air Doctor. Americans spend an average of 90% of their time indoors, but did you know that indoor air can be up to 100 times more polluted than outdoor air? You can breathe easy with Air Doctor, the award-winning air purifier that eliminates 99.99% of dangerous contaminants like allergens, viruses, smoke, gases, mold spores, and more. Air Doctor was voted Best Air Purifier by Newsweek, so it's no surprise that 98% of Air Doctor customers agree their home's air feels cleaner, safer, and healthier. Unlike other purifiers, Air Doctor captures invisible particles 100 times smaller than standard HEPA filters. We have air purifiers in our bedroom as well as the kids' bedrooms, and everyone has been sleeping better. I love how quiet the Air Doctor is. It's like the perfect amount of white noise. I would absolutely splurge on this for a nursery for baby. Like, get the cheap crib from IKEA and put your money towards this so that your baby has clean air in their nursery. We also have one in our living room, and I've noticed a huge difference after cooking and things like that. It just really clears the room really quickly. Head to airdoctorpro.com and use the promo code BIRTHHOUR to get up to $300 off today. Air Doctor comes with a 30-day money-back guarantee plus a 3-year warranty, which is an $84 value for free. You can get this exclusive podcast-only offer now at airdoctorpro.com, airdoctorpro.com, using the promo code BIRTHHOUR. Today's birth story guest is Océane, and she has 2 birth stories in France to share, both home births, and her midwife did not make it for the actual birth of either baby, so quick births. All right, let's hear from Océane. Hi, Océane. Welcome to the Birth Hour. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Hello, thank you so much for having me.
Of course. I'm excited to hear 2 stories from you. But before we get to that, will you tell listeners just a little bit about you and your family?
Sure. So my name is Océane. I'm 32. I'm French. I'm currently a stay-at-home mom, but I used to work as a beautician. My partner is Justin, and he works in IT. We've been together for 11 years, and we have two kids, Zephyr, he's 4, and Swan is 7 months old.
Okay, and we're going to hear both stories today. So why don't you just take us back to wherever you want to start as far as getting pregnant with your first?
Perfect. So I discovered the book Taking Charge of Your Fertility in my early 20s, and it kind of sparked a real interest in women's health, and I have been practicing the fertility awareness methods since then. So it's been about 10 years. And I've also always been interested in birth. So my mom actually had planned a home birth with me, even though I ended up being born in a hospital. It was always something that we had talked about. My cousin had given birth at home about 10 years prior, which had always fascinated me. And my aunt is also a retired midwife. So birth has always been a topic in my family. In my 20s, I came across the documentary, The Business of Being Born, which is talked about a lot in your podcast as well, which I made my partner watch with me. And also that's around the time that I started listening to your podcast. So I had no plan of having a baby for a while, but I still loved to listen to your podcast going to work. And I also discovered her name is Siobhan Miller of the Positive Birth Company in the UK, which also I had heard mentioned in your podcast as well.
Very cool.
So I really wanted to experience birth and pregnancy, and I had to wait a while for my partner to be ready. So in December of 2019, I went back to my hometown in Toulouse because I was living in Paris with my boyfriend, and he relocated in February, so of 2020. And he quickly felt that he was ready to start trying. And so we were lucky to conceive on the first try, and actually my ovulation window coincided the day before our lockdown was announced.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah, so it's kind of a COVID baby, but it was planned. And so I love the fact that I had been tracking my cycles for a while, so I really knew the way my cycles worked. And I also knew that I had to see a rise in temperature for 18 days. And usually my temperature would dip around the 14th day. It was quite early on that I knew that I was pregnant. I still took an early test at 2 weeks, which was negative, but I knew I was pregnant, and I knew it was just too early to test. And on the 18th day, exactly on the dot, I took another test, and it was positive. So I kind of felt like I was my own pregnancy guinea pig because I love this world and this learning about it. I could try pretty much everything on me, and I was also really excited to build my birth team, especially.
Yeah. So when you were mentioning your cousin and other people you knew having home births, is that something that it's usually not very common in France, right?
No, it's not. It's quite rare. So it's legal, but it's a bit controversial because people don't know a lot about it, and there aren't a lot of midwives who are doing it. So my cousins had given birth. So I went back to Toulouse. It's in the south of France, and I had lived for about 10 years in Paris. But even in Paris, it's quite difficult to find a home birth midwife.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but to me, it had always been something that I wanted to do. I had never been hospitalized. I was never comfortable in hospital settings. So because I knew that home birth existed, for me, it was obvious that this would be the way that I wanted to give birth. I remember even in high school, I would talk about it to my friends. Like for me was, if everything is okay, and because pregnancy and birth is not a disease, if the pregnancy, you don't have any pathology, like for me, a home birth was the way.
Yeah.
And actually, so about a few months before, my sister got pregnant, and she had a baby boy, and I got pregnant a month later. And even for them, so they were in Paris, and they kind of went to see a few home birth midwife, but they didn't feel like it was the plan for them.
Mm-hmm.
So I was really excited to meet home birth midwives, because I knew that it all would also depend on how you would vibe together.
Right.
To also backtrack just a little bit before the pregnancy, when I first moved to Toulouse, because I was really curious, I actually started to look for practicing home birth midwives in the area. Way before my boyfriend said that he wanted to start trying. I wanted to see like what was the birth in Toulouse, and I had to dig really deep because they don't advertise. So I had to find forums about any information I could get my hands on, and the only thing that I had found was a support page for a midwife in the area who was currently not practicing because there was a lawsuit pending. She was still allowed to practice, but she chose to take a break until the trial. It was quite a sad story, and so I researched a lot about it, and I couldn't stop thinking about that story and that midwife. So when I got pregnant, I was still doing a lot of research. And I remember that midwife that I had found, the support page about her, but I couldn't find more information. So what I did is I went to look for other ways to build my team. So first, I started looking for an ultrasound technician, because here you can either go to a hospital or ultrasound center, or you have some midwives who have a private practice and they do the scans. So I found a midwife practice. There was one male midwife doing the ultrasound and another midwife who was doing the prenatal appointments. So I went there for an early scan. So because it was early COVID, I could book my appointment online, and I went also to get a blood work, and my partner obviously couldn't come for the early scan. And the private provider was amazing. He was really kind and really professional and really patient, and it gave me a lot of hope to find a really good provider on the first try, because I was expecting a lot of hurdles. And because I had been tracking my cycle, I was able to give the exact date of conception, which matched the size of the embryo. So I was really happy about that, because I have a 3-week period between my periods and the ovulation window. And here in France, they usually ask for your last period, and then they add 2 weeks for the date of conception, and which would have given a different due date. So I was really happy that I was able to have really specific, precise information. And also the provider, he took my knowledge really seriously. So it was really, really nice.
That's great.
Yeah. But still, I registered at a hospital nearby, because I didn't have a midwife, and I had to secure a spot, because here it's quite complicated. You have to register really early on, otherwise you're not sure to be seen, and then you are welcomed kind of as an emergency when you go to give birth. So I registered really early on. But you usually do your follow-up until the 7th month of pregnancy with your regular team. So usually you either go to a midwife practice or OB practice. And then once you are 7 months pregnant, the hospital takes over. So first I went to see the midwife in my ultrasound practice, but she was nice, but like I didn't feel like she was the one. The information that she was giving me was kind of basic, and I had a lot of questions. I wanted to know if she had contacts about home birth midwives, and she only had information about like a birth center, and the only one in the region is 1.5 hours away. and for us in France, it's really far. So I was like, okay, no, I'm not going to drive that far. So yeah, for the first trimester, I was kind of discouraged because I pretty much asked everybody around me if they had any contacts, and nobody had anything to give me. So I did the early scan, and then we did the first trimester ultrasound, and my partner was able to come with me. And that's when they screened for anomalies. And at 16 weeks, the ultrasound midwife, he called me because once when he screened for the anomalies, he also looked at my blood work. And I had to come back for a checkup because I had elevated beta HCG levels. And he was concerned about the fact that it could be a sign of bad placental exchange, and it could impact the baby's growth. So I would have to come back at 20 weeks for a checkup scan. Fortunately, everything ended up being okay. We found out he was a boy, so it was really nice because after that little scare, the rest of the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. And after that, it kind of gave me also a little push to say, okay, so everything is okay. I really want to have the birth of my dreams. So I started to contact midwives, home birth midwives, who were further away from me. So I contacted one who was over 2 hours away, one who was over 1 hour and a half away, and she was on holiday, so I left a message. And so I got pregnant in March, and that was end of July, and I still hadn't found anybody. And she called me back, and I remember I was at the restaurant with my partner, and she said that she would consider taking me on as a patient. And then she said, I don't usually take patients that are and where they live if there's already a practicing midwife in the area. So I was like, but there's nobody. That's the thing. I'm desperate, and I can drive. Yeah. And she was like, yes, there is. Her name is Hélène. And so that was the midwife in question in the support page.
Oh, okay.
So I said, no, yeah, I heard about her case, and that's the thing. She's not practicing at the moment. And then the woman I had on the phone said, yes, I heard that she's practicing. So I was like, what? Give me her phone number. I'm going to call immediately. And so what's crazy is that, so I called Hélène, and she had just started to practice again for only like 2 or 3 weeks. So it was really serendipitous. The timing was perfect. And she called me back, and she was, yes, I'm available for a December due date. And I was so relieved. Like, it was really, everything was opening up again. So we decided to meet in August after summer break. So I went on holidays. I was so happy. I read Ina May's book, Guide to Childbirth. And once we got back, we had the second trimester ultrasound. Everything went okay. And the day after that, we met with Hélène. Before seeing her, I had a prepared list of questions, even though I kind of knew because she was a home birth midwife. So I knew that they would respect the physiology of birth. But because I was kind of nervous, I prepared my list to kind of test her. And when we met her, she introduced herself, and she basically answered all the questions that I had before I could even ask them. And I had an amazing feeling about her. I kind of even wanted to cry because I was so happy and hormonal. So actually, in her practice, there were 3 midwives. So she was the midwife in charge. Then she had a colleague, and then they had recently welcomed a young midwife who had just graduated. And so 3 of them, and they would rotate. So there would be 2 midwives at birth, at each birth. So she said to kind of think it over. For me, I was sure, but we had to talk with my partner about it. Even though I had been throughout our whole relationship, I had talked about wanting a home birth. Not know that it was possible. We still had to make sure that we were on board, the both of us. And we had an interesting conversation about it because he asked me, he saw how complicated it was to find a midwife and to kind of put everything together. And he asked if it really was worth the trouble. And so I answered that, yeah, it had been complicated until then, but for me, it would be all worth it because I knew that in labor, I would be able to surrender and let go and kind of trust my team. Whereas because I wasn't comfortable in a hospital setting, it would be kind of smooth sailing because you know when you're going to see your provider and everything. But for me, labor, I was really scared of giving birth at hospital because I didn't know who would be there, and I didn't know the way the providers would work with me, So we decided, obviously, to go with the home birth midwives and their practice. We met at 26 weeks. We met with the doula, but we didn't think that we would go with her because in France, the doulas aren't allowed to attend hospital birth, which I think is the most important part of their job, is to be there in this type of setting. But because we knew that there would be 2 midwives at our home birth, and my sister would also be there to take pictures, we didn't see the need to hire a doula. And so we did the birth courses with all 3 of them. They would rotate also the visits and the appointments, so we could get to know all of them. They were all wonderful. I really loved all of them. And we also went over birth emergencies, what to do if midwife is not here, which plays a part in my birth story, positions and everything. So yeah, we did about 7 appointments, and they were about over an hour long, and we could really talk about us. They would ask my partner how he was, how he felt at the time. So it was really in depth. And so I was still registered at the hospital because I was scared I would go over my due date. They gave me 1 week to go over my due date, and I was also scared of being breached. So I really wanted to have a spot in case I would have to give birth in the hospital. So at 7 months, I went there because they didn't know my plan was to give birth at home. And actually, I couldn't tell them because in this hospital in particular, they really were not supportive of home births. And if I would have told them my plan, they would have made me give up my spots. So I went there. It was a really quick appointment. The midwife that I saw, she actually knew my midwife. She saw her name on the blood work results, and she had a lot of questions about it, and I kind of had to lie, which I really wasn't comfortable with it. But I kind of wanted to keep my plans to myself, especially when I was talking to people who I knew weren't supportive of what I had planned.
Smart.
Yeah. But yeah, it was kind of weird. But the appointments lasted for about 10 minutes. And then I was out the door. They still were concerned about the ultrasound checkup that I had done. And they were mostly concerned that it was done by the same person. And they wanted the checkup to be done by a doctor, another midwife. So said, no, you have to come back for the 3rd trimester ultrasound. You have to do it at the hospital. They didn't follow protocol. So I was like, okay, but everything is fine. And they, yeah, but still you had to come back. So I went for the third trimester ultrasound and I did it at the hospital, and everything was okay. But I really could feel the difference between the care that I had during my pregnancy and the really rushed appointments that I had at the hospital. And it wasn't even the time that they had, because they have a lot of patients and you can do a lot in 15 minutes, but they were kind of dismissive and a bit judgy. So I really wasn't a fan.
Yeah.
And also that hospital had a reputation of being pro physiological birth. But yeah, I really didn't feel comfortable.
Okay.
And also during that time, I attended a conference about birth with Michel Audin, who's a really famous OB in France, and he wrote a lot of books about physiological birth, and he's the one who introduced birth tubs in hospital in France. And there were a lot of doulas who were attending this conference, and it was a 3-day conference. It was amazing. So I was going to the hospital, and then I was going to this amazing conference talking about being hands off, not intervening. So it was really interesting, and it really reinforced my will to give birth at home. So I had the 8-month appointment at hospital, and I refused the cervical check because I was on maternity leave. So up until then, I had been working and on my feet all day. So I had 2 cervical check on the 6 and 7 months appointment, but I really didn't enjoy it, and I didn't feel the need to have more, especially towards the end. So I told the hospital midwife, who was kind of surprised, but I had prepared a whole speech and said, okay, I'm on maternity leave, so even though I'm dilated, I'm 8 months pregnant, so I really don't want to know. So fortunately, she respected my wishes, but I kind of had to build up the courage to stand up for myself. So the rest of the pregnancy was pretty uneventful. I was so excited. I loved the preparation because we also did the hypnobirthing course, the positive birth company course. So I was writing my affirmations, setting on my birth space. We had rented the pool. Yeah, it was amazing. I did osteopathic care throughout my pregnancy as well. And on the day of my 37th week of pregnancy, once I knew baby was in the right position and I wasn't going to be delivering a possibly premature baby, I called the hospital to cancel my registration so that it could also open up a bed for somebody else.
Okay, getting close.
Yeah, so the due date. So my due date was on Monday, December 14th. So it was actually my partner's birthday. And he had been on a training course, so it wasn't far from home, but it was just before Christmas holidays. And listening to many podcasts, I knew that the baby would come also when everything was available, when dad was available and mom was emotionally ready. And I also kind of expected to go over my due date. And because my partner would be on holidays on the Thursday, I predicted that baby would either be born on Thursday night or Friday. Like I felt that once he was off, that's when I would go into labor. And actually, it's what happened. So on the due date, one of the midwife had offered me acupuncture to help with starting labor, but I declined because I knew that baby wouldn't be born until a few more days. I wasn't in any rush. I felt really comfortable. I loved the end of my pregnancy. And I still went because I was overdue, I went for ultrasounds and monitoring every 2 days. And everything was perfect, plus placenta was really nice. And on the Thursday night, my boyfriend was off his training course. I went at a friend's place, just really near my home. And on Friday, the 18th, quite early on, I woke up to go to the bathroom and I lost a bit of mucus plug. So that's the day of the 18th and the day that I predicted. So birth started really quietly. I stayed on the toilet for a little while. I had some cramps, but it felt kind of like period cramps. So it was really manageable. I told my boyfriend that I had lost my mucus plug. I was really excited and I knew it was kind of the start. I wrote to my sister because she had rented an apartment nearby. They came from Paris and she came here to be at my birth and to take picture. So she had to be warned because she had to organize childcare for her a little baby. And I had cramps every 10 to 15 minutes and I could manage them in kind of a fetal position, just like if I were my period, and I was able to sleep. So from 6 to 9, I was drifting in and out of sleep. I was managing and I was really excited. So I didn't really want to sleep deeply, but it was manageable. At around 9, I took a hot shower, I had breakfast. My boyfriend, he went upstairs to set things up. We had already put up the birth pool, but he was making sure we had everything ready, the sheets and everything. And he offered to stay with me, but I managed. I was swaying over the radiator to warm up my belly. It was really funny. And I texted my midwife. So because they were rotating, I kind of knew who would attend. And in that week, it wasn't Hélène, it was somebody else. Her name is Cécile, and she was the other midwife in charge. And she was supposed to come on that day for monitoring. She offered to let us labor together, but I told her that I kind of needed her to come because I still wanted to do the monitoring. I wanted to be reassured and make sure that it was a real deal. So at 11, we went for a short walk. I was swaying, I was hanging from my partner's neck. And then we came back to meet with the midwife. And on the monitoring, she picked up some contractions. It was irregular. And she said, "Oh yeah, baby could be born maybe tomorrow." And in my head, I was like, no, baby is being born today. Like I knew. So then she left and she said, "Okay, go out about your day and you call me back when you think you want me to come back." So I was doing my hypnobirthing breathing. I was already really focusing, even though it was manageable, I was already really in it and focused. And then the midwife left and my sister came over and we put on a movie. And I asked my boyfriend, I really want to get some noodles. I wanted to eat something. And he was like, okay. And he actually went out to buy everything to make it, even though I thought we would get takeout. But he had some last minute packages to mail and he had a lot of things to wrap up. And he was gone a while. Actually, he was gone for about 2 hours. And I couldn't focus on the movie. I kept going on the toilet. And it was pretty much where I labored the whole way. I was going back and forth between the toilet and the couch. And then I went upstairs to my bedroom and I labored between the toilet and my bedroom and my bed. He got back around 3 p.m. And as soon as he got there, I was like, okay, I want to get in the bath. I don't want to eat. So I got in the bath and I immediately got a lot of relief. And I wanted really hot water, because it was a cold day and a cold bathroom. And we had a kind of a complicated water heater. So he kept heating the water with a kettle. So I was like, more water, hotter, more. And so every contraction, he would hold my hand, and then he would manage the hot water. Then he would hold my hand, and then go back to to filling the bath with hot water. And the only way I was handling the contraction was to have my ears around water. It really calmed me. And I stayed there for a while, and the contractions were quite regular and every 4 to 5 minutes. So, and I remember saying to my partner, they're really close together. I felt like I didn't have a break. After about an hour of that, I was in labor land. My sister came back from going to nurse her son. She took some pictures, and I was someplace else. I couldn't focus on her. And she put her hand on my forehead, and I remember her hand was cold. And I remember just pushing her hand away. But I'm grateful because it kind of made me come back, and I realized that I had been leaning back for a while. And that's kind of the only way that I thought about my position, because I had been leaning back. And in the hypnobirthing course, there was something that I remembered. It was UFO, so it's really nice to be upright, forward, and open. And I was laying on my back, basically, in the bath. So I wanted to change position.
I haven't heard that acronym before. That's fun.
Yeah. I had to go back to find that acronym, but I mostly remember forward and open and yeah. Also, I don't know how you call it, but the position when you are on your back and pushing on your back,
right?
And that's why we say that it's better to be leaning forward. Mm-hmm. So at that time, I was like, okay, I really want to help my baby descend, and I don't think it's the right position for that. So we went back to my bedroom, which was really close to the bathroom, and I kind of made a mountain of pillows to lean on, and I was on kind of my hands and knees, but resting my elbows on my pillows, and I couldn't have anything touching my belly, so my belly was kind of hanging up, and it was really comfortable like that. But I kept going to the toilet, and I kept saying, I really want to go to the bathroom. I want to poop. But I knew it wasn't like pushing urges. I just felt the need to kind of empty my stomach. And I did that for the rest of my labor. Bedroom toilets. I was really comfortable. And at 4, so about 30 minutes after I left the bath, my partner, he called the midwife to let her know, because it was quite regular and they were quite close together. And the recently graduated midwife, her name is Leah, and she's the one, she got there first. And I remember her presence, really calm, and she came with a Doppler to listen to the baby's heart, and she kept whispering, "You're doing amazing." And then she would leave. So in my bedroom, it was only me, my boyfriend, and sometimes my sister, and she was there and then she wasn't, and it really felt amazing. I felt really supported, but I didn't need them, actually. I was really handling things on my own, and I vocalized a lot. I moaned. I was offered different positions to find relief, but I kept going back to these 2 positions, on the toilet and on my bed. And I remembered kind of the hypnobirthing tips, and I would say ouvre, which it's like open. So I was like ouvre, descend, anything to kind of relax my jaw. So it was like down, baby, open. And I kind of kept reminding myself to be like gum, to trying not to tense up, because I could really feel the difference when I was tensing up and when I was really kind of loose. And when Cécile, so the midwife in charge, when she got there, It was at the moment in my labor when I was falling asleep in between contractions. So I felt like I was taking 1 hour naps each time, but it was like more 10 or 15 minutes breaks. So when she got there, she saw that things were slowing down. I remember I asked for the pool around 6 p.m. and she told my partner that he could slow me down. I don't remember what he told me, but I was too focused on the contractions to actually care. So I didn't mind. I also threw up twice and I was really happy because I was like, oh, I think we're getting closer. So it was kind of different. In my mind, I was really getting close. And for her, I think she saw that I had a long ways to go. So it lasted for about an hour, yes. And at 7, they wanted to leave me to labor on my own and also go and get dinner because I think they saw that they had a long ways to go with me. And we had the curfew at 8. And also Cecile was in her first trimester of pregnancy, so I think she wasn't feeling too well. And so they asked if I consented to a cervical check, which they actually usually didn't do. So I said yes, but I said I don't want to know how far along I am. I just want to know if things are progressing, because if I were given the information about the number, I would be focusing on that. And also I had a friend who had given birth a few months before me, and the same thing happened. They told her she was at 7 centimeters, and she later said that she was kind of calculating in her head how long she had, and that's kind of what she was regretting. So I didn't want to know. I was really scared to get discouraged. And it was really difficult to get on my back because I kept having waves, but finally I managed. Cecile told me that I was doing great and progressing fine. And I'm so happy I chose not to know, because she showed my boyfriend and my sister the number 4 with her fingers. If I had known that I was at 4 centimeters only, I think I would have immediately asked to go to the hospital, because in my head I was further than that.
Right.
So they left. And my sister also left to go nurse her baby. And I went back on the toilet and I had several contractions. And slowly my sound changed. I started grunting a little bit. I was still focused on pooping, and I found a lot of relief on the toilet. I had my feet on my partner's knee, who was on the floor in front of me. After a while, so maybe after 20 minutes after they left, I kind of felt like I was fed up, and I started to feel like I had the urge to push a little bit, but I did not recognize that feeling right away. I thought I still needed to empty my bowels. But I kind of started pushing a little bit and pushing a little bit more, and then with a little more determination, because it felt really good. And I kind of started to feel like I wanted to be done with it. And my partner, he noticed my sounds changing. I was holding my breath a little bit. I also got a bit wide-eyed. I had a wide-eyed look on my face, and I remember, I don't remember. He remembers me saying, what am I going to do? What am I going to do? And I don't really know what I was referring to, maybe the birth, or kind of a bit panicked. And I didn't realize, I think I was in transition, but he gently led me to the bedroom because he was scared that I would give birth on the toilet. I got on my bed and I leaned on my pillow tower, and I kept grunting and pushing. And that's when I realized, oh, baby's descending actually. So I kept pushing, and I wanted to feel with my hands if the head was there. So head was not there. I pushed a little bit more, and I couldn't wait to get him out. And I touched again, and I felt something. So I was like, okay, something is happening for real. Then my boyfriend said, do it for Zephyr. We had not agreed on that name. So it was really an amazing memory, because that's the first time that he pronounce and acknowledge the name, and it really gave me a motivation.
Oh, yeah.
So I asked for a wet wipe, but reusable cloth. We had planned that if one baby would be crowning, that I would want to have some warm wet cloth to help with the ring of fire. But he totally forgot that, and he brought back water wipes because in French the word is the same. And I was like, no, the cloth, hot. And he brought back some reusable cloth, but they were cold because we had no more hot water. So I was like, okay, never mind. And I kept pushing. So I got back to look at the exact time. So at 8:17, my boyfriend, he texted the midwife to tell her the head was coming out. I pushed again. I felt something really soft. It was kind of a strange feeling. But I knew it was the head. And at 8:21, the baby crowned. I know because I asked for a picture. It's very weird, but I wanted to kind of see afterwards everything that was happening. So at 8:21, the head starts to come out. I pushed, the head is out. I pushed again, and the rest of the body followed with my waters breaking at the same time. So my boyfriend caught the baby with a towel, and then he handed me the baby between my legs. And at 8:23, there's a picture of me holding my baby. So 8:17, he texted the midwife, and at 8:23, baby's out. So it was really quick and amazing. Yeah, in pretty much 2 pushes.
Yeah.
So we remembered everything that we had been taught during the course. So we put warm towels on him. My boyfriend, he had remembered he had put them on the radiator beforehand. We dried the baby, and then I leaned back. I was in shock, and I kept saying, what are we going to do? What are we doing now? But I was so happy and really, in shock. Baby was amazing. So Zephyr, he calmed that really quickly. And then I asked for something to keep me warm. He dried my legs because my waters had broken all over myself. And then we called the midwives, which is funny because we were told afterwards that when we called them, the people they were with, they were getting takeout, and the place they were at were actually former patients of them. And the cook said, "Ooh, baby's born." And when Cécile picked up the phone, she heard the baby crying. She was like, "Oh my God!" And they were really closed from our house, so they got back. My sister got back just before them. They got back just in time for me to deliver the placenta.
That's good.
So it was quite easy. Placenta was at the entrance of the vagina, and I kneeled with the baby in my arms. I pushed just a little bit, and the placenta got out quite easily. I had a second-degree tear. I was really swollen, so I got stitched up with baby on my chest. We made a print of the placenta. So everything after was perfect. Leah, she encouraged me to go empty my bladder, and she came with me. I think maybe she saw that, it would be best if I went with her, so that I wouldn't have to go pee in the middle of the night. And actually, I fainted on the way back. It was only for 2 seconds, but I woke up feeling like I had taken a really long nap and super rested. So it was more my partner who got scared because I think it was impressive. But then I laid back down, and we removed the plastic covers, then the old sheet, and we got tucked in, and it was the best feeling ever.
Wow, quite a whirlwind there at the end.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So we had wanted a second child. We wanted them to be about 4 years apart. And in the end, I got pregnant. It was a surprise because at that time, because I was still breastfeeding, I wasn't tracking my cycle as well. I wasn't taking my temperature. I kind of knew there were I was in my ovulation window, but I wasn't sure exactly when I would ovulate. So yeah, I got pregnant, and my son was 3.5. So pregnancy was good. I had a bit more symptoms. We moved. I had a 3-year-old, but everything was perfect, and I really was excited to see my midwives again. So pregnancy was pretty uneventful. I had a bit of low iron, so I went to for an iron drip, and I took some supplements to manage my iron levels because it could impact my second home birth, and they were worried about possible blood loss and fatigue after birth. I registered to another hospital because I was also kind of scared to go overdue or to have a breech baby. And I registered to a different hospital, and they had just started to accept my midwives' patients and to kind of register them, because beforehand they were not accepting to follow up with their patients. So we had moved, pregnancy weren't perfect, and my due date was on the 15th. And I was sure again I would go past my due date. But on the 7th, a week before my due date, my brother-in-law actually got into a really serious accident, and he was put in an artificial coma after the surgery. And so we had talked with my partner, and I really felt like he needed to see him, and I reassured him. I was like, baby's not going to come anytime soon. I'm sure I'm going to go over, but you have to leave quickly and go back quickly. So he left for 24 hours, and he came back on Monday morning. And so on Monday early afternoon, I had the start of my labor. So my labor started at 1 p.m. and he got back in the morning. So he was really tired. Yeah. So same thing, the body responds really well to the presence of the partner. And I think also I let go of all the stress. But it was kind of stressful because he was really tired. He went, as soon as I told him, I think something is happening, he went for a short nap. My mom was there. She was helping to cook the last of the postpartum meals. And I was in denial throughout the day because I had really manageable contractions. So I wasn't sure it was that. I just felt like it was the beginning of something because I hadn't had any contractions during the rest of the pregnancy. So I wasn't sure, and I was in denial basically. I swayed on my yoga ball. I timed the waves on the Freya app from the Positive Birth Company, but they were quite mild. My mom went to pick my son up from school, and my sister came over, and I was still saying, I think it's going to take a few days, maybe, I'm not sure. And I couldn't tell, even though I still had to pause and breathe in between the waves. But I kept saying that it wasn't the real deal. The waves started around 1 p.m. I labored throughout the afternoon, and at 8, we went upstairs with my boyfriend, and we said, okay, maybe we should start getting the bedroom ready because we hadn't gotten anything ready, the birth pool or anything. And my sister, she went to see me, and I kept saying, I'm not welcoming anything. I feel like I'm really tense, and I'm tensing when the contractions are coming, and I don't envision myself doing this for a long time, and I know it's going to last a long time. So this was at 8. She was like, okay, yeah. But I think she knew that it was actually really happening. I had a comb in my hand, which kind of held me. So at first at 8, I went upstairs. I was swaying on my yoga ball, and then I went to lie down on my bed. And on my bed, I was really uncomfortable, but I didn't have the courage to get up. So for about 3 hours, I was in a fetal position and then with a pregnancy pillow between my legs. And it was really difficult to welcome the contractions. I wasn't able to relax. I was kind of panicking. And the contractions were getting really close together. So at 11, because the app had warned us that I was in active labor, Justin, he called the midwives and said, okay, we're leaving right away. We'll be there in 30 minutes. And when he hung up, I even told him, no, I don't want them to come for nothing. I think we could have waited another hour, but okay, since you called them, I think we'll make sure. And that's when I decided to get up because the pain felt really sharp. I wanted to empty my bowels because I was sure that something was kind of blocking and making this pain feeling really sharp. And I was sure that once I would empty my bowel, the sensation would subside. So I went and sat on the toilet, and I had several contractions really close together. I felt the urge to bear down. So I got up, I closed the lid of the toilet, I put one foot up, and baby started really descending really quickly. The pain was really important. I kind of felt like I was opening in two, but I couldn't comprehend what was happening. And I remember I let out a huge scream of despair. It didn't last for long, but I really remember now the scream that I let out. And I still couldn't understand what was happening. So my partner went to grab a towel to catch the baby. And when the baby started crowning, or just before then, I felt that the head was descending, and all of a sudden I was calm. Like, I think I understood what was happening, and then I started breathing the baby out. And I actually have a video of it. My sister was in the bathroom, and she was kind of shocked because it was super quick. And I was like, and the head was out, and then the body was out. So 30 minutes after my partner had called the midwives, baby was born.
Wow.
Yeah. And actually, it was really funny because for about 2 hours before, I was really panicked and I felt kind of out of it. And once I understood and once the head came out, yeah, everything kind of clicked together. And actually, the cord was wrapped once around the neck, and I unwrapped it really calmly. Baby was super calm. She let out a small cry, so we didn't know she was a girl. But she let out a small cry. She coughed a little bit. I wiped her mouth and her nose, and then she got quiet again, and I took her in my arms. And then I walked to my bedroom. My partner, he followed me with a towel because I left a trail of blood behind me. And we hadn't prepared anything, so I didn't have anything on the sheets. So I was like, please put a pad, because I was bleeding quite heavily.
Yeah.
And I got on the bed, and the midwives got there about 15 minutes after. Because they got stuck on the road. There was a football match, I think.
Wow.
So yeah, I got settled and I was in shock, but I was really calmed. And afterwards, I only had a small tear. I didn't have to get stitches, and yeah, everything was really peaceful for the placenta. But yeah, everything afterwards was really calm, and it was really in contrast with the labor.
Wow. Yeah. So you guys are just pros at handling those accidental unassisted home
It's
births.
really, yeah, it's funny because our friends were joking, saying, okay, now you have to remember to call the midwife. And we keep feeling that we call them at the right time, but I think I have really short active stages.
Yeah. Well, yeah, now that it's happened twice, for sure. But it sounds like everything went well and they were there pretty quickly. So
Exactly, yeah. And because I had a lot of information and I had researched a lot, for me, they were there at the perfect time. Because when I was looking for my birth team, I had thought about unassisted home birth. And what was preventing me from doing that was the delivering of the placenta. So in the end, it was actually perfect, and I couldn't envision myself giving birth differently. For my two births, I would want a third, but I would love to have my midwives for my birth, but we'll see.
Yeah, well, they say the third's the wild card, so maybe you'll get a little bit slower.
Exactly. We'll see about that.
Yeah. All right. You mentioned some great resources already. If you want to just send me the links, I'll put them on the show notes. And then where can people reach out to connect with you?
Yeah, so I am on Instagram and my profile is private. Sometimes it's public, sometimes it's private, but you can totally reach out. It's OMCGHIE, McGhie, which is my last name, McGhie. And yeah, I would love to connect with fellow birth enthusiasts.
Awesome. All right. Well, thank you again for sharing.
Thank you so much, Bryn.
Thank you so much again to Océane for sharing her birth stories with us. You can find her show notes by going to thebirthhour.com and searching for her full name in the search bar. And if you want other links and coupon codes and things like that from today's episode, those will also be on the show notes as well as in the podcast app where you're listening to this episode. For that Air Doctor discount, remember it's airdoctorpro.com with the code BIRTHHOUR to save up to $300 off and get that free 3-year warranty.
Thanks so much for listening. If you enjoyed today's show, head to thebirthhour.com and click Become a Member to pledge your support. And as a thank you, you'll get an invitation to join our private Facebook group and access to exclusive episodes. Your vote of confidence and support means the world to me.